Well, gosh, what do you think of that, beer guy?
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Underground Cave. I am Geltip, and you're watching Mini Painting with Geltip. Now, tonight is the Sunday night. It's the first installment of our Sunday night paint along, and therefore we are going to paint the Reaper miniature 77418, and that's Xiao. It's a female monk. We're going to just keep it easy this time. So if you don't have the miniature or you don't have the colors that I'm using tonight, I will be posting the stream onto YouTube at some point, and it will also be up until Friday, I think, when I stream. So if you don't do it today, you can always have time to catch up during the week by just coming back to this channel, watching the past reruns, or wait for all four of these things to be posted on YouTube, and then you have a chance to actually paint along during the YouTube stream. But if you're watching on YouTube or you watch the reruns, you're not going to be able to ask questions. So try to do these, ask questions along the way. But that's where we're at tonight. So this is sort of a tutorial stream, but not really. It's just for you to kind of grab the same miniature, apply the same techniques that I applied to my miniatures, and try to get something to boost your level if that's what you want to do, or just kind of have fun and relax and paint. Maybe use a set of colors you wouldn't normally use. So it's just, that's what these paint alongs are for. It Don't worry if you can't follow along fast enough. Don't worry if yours doesn't look like mine, and totally use, you can totally change the colors and paint along with your own colors. But this is just a way, if you're painting the same miniature I am, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you're not painting the same miniature that I am and you have some other female monk, well, maybe she doesn't have, maybe you have something that mine doesn't have, or maybe mine has something that yours doesn't have. So however that works. But that's what these paint alongs are for. This is the second season we're doing this. So, and I'm hoping to incorporate many more things. So if you join the Discord, !Discord, and I'll put that in here now. Hey, Demon Speed. There it is. That's the Discord. Join the Discord. Go over to, it's Paint Alongs 2024 is the name of the channel, and you can find out what we're painting. The first 4 installments, I think that brings us all the way to June. So you can find those 4 installments. I will be transovering back to Thursday night paint alongs at some point, but for right now, we're doing Sunday nights. So yeah, there's the announcement. I spent all weekend at a local convention, and I will talk more about that on Tuesday. But I'll show off what I painted for that convention, and we'll get working on this paint along. So go grab your supplies, go grab your paints, go grab your brushes and your water to rinse out those brushes with, and let's just get painting, shall we? All right. So this is the miniature that we're going to be painting today. This is Xiao. She's a female monk. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make her a blonde with, and then she has this nice face, this flesh tone. We're going to give her some blue, a blue vest with ivory, an ivory. Actually, I'm thinking maybe an ivory vest. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We got some brown pants going on, brown bow stick, but that's what we're going to do. So, just like I said, to show off what we did for Total Con here, I got to paint this genie. This genie here, looks like I'm a little loud, so let me just kind of boost this down just a bit. There we go. So we have this here. This is my genie. This is my spiritual genie that I'm trying to create. So you can see I got the glow effect going on the hat there. And I try to make them nice and bright with everything else kind of on the darker side. We learned a couple things about how blue reflects gold. So we will probably fix that up. but this is what we're painting on stream. And then you can see how I have the glow effect of the arm coming down, a little bit of the glow effect from his back and the hair onto the metal, and then also some glow effect on this purpley thing. And then there's the mist that we tried to get through all the way up. So that's what he looks like. That's what I had entered. But there's a couple things that I want to do on him. You're probably looking at this guy here, and you're probably looking at this flat part here. I saved that because I want to do some detail on that. So, but yeah, so that's what we entered. Hopefully that looks cool. If you're on the Instagram, you would have seen him. So I'm going to throw him up there. I just want to go through the colors that I'm using today. I will post these up on the YouTube channel. I just gave you the basic colors, but these are my colors that I'm using. These are my paints. I do this so that if you're looking for kind of some cool paints to buy, you can do that as well. So I'm just going to go through the Citadel. We're going to use Gilliman Flesh. This is my liquidy brown. So we're going to use Gilliman Flesh for some stuff. Not to wash the miniature, but it's more or less to see what we're going on. So if you have Gilliman Flesh, that's a good brown thin paint to use. That's from GW. We also have from Two Thin Coats the Dwarven Skin. So we'll do the skin in Dwarven, and then we're going to keep highlighting that up. So as I highlight that up, I will be using the Bright Ivory from Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl. So if you have Bright Ivory or just Ivory, whatever one, if you have a white or Vallejo Ivory is about the same. See, if I take this Bright Ivory from Vallejo, it's pretty much the same color. So if you have Bright Ivory or if you have regular Ivory 70.918, it's pretty much the same as this Bright Ivory. But I'm using the Pro Acryl. And staying with the Monument Hobby theme, I'm using their golden yellow right there. I'm also using their blue from Pro Acryl. And we're going to be using my favorite brown, Mahogany, because it has a reddish tone. This completes that primary triad of red, yellow, and blue. Of course, we'll always use a black or a white. So I'm using Dragon Black for this one, 9437 from Reaper Miniatures. And staying with Reaper Miniatures, we got this Misty Gray 09090. 09090. That's Misty Gray, and we're going to use this to kind of mute some colors out as needed. So those are my 9 colors. We're going to stick with those colors all through the month, or the 4 Sundays that we're doing her. And she's pretty small, so we'll probably get done with her, and then we'll work on some more advancement stuff farther along. So just trying to gauge pretty much where she's at today. We're going to work on some flesh tones today. I figure if we get the flesh tones in, and then we can get some other stuff based, and then we'll figure out, based on all of the other colors, where the blue and the ivory should go. So that's what we're going to do today. So we have our paints, we have our miniature, we need our brushes. Now, because she's pretty small, I'm going to use a medium round brush and a small round brush. So anything between 1 and 2, maybe a 0 round. So I will use my Foxbite. This is a round 1. So you can see, based on the miniature, that's pretty big, that's pretty large. I have a nice tip here, so we're going to stay with the 1. The 2s might be big. We're also going to look at a smaller round, so maybe a 0. Is this a 0? This is a 1. We don't want the 1. We want a 0. And then we're probably going to need a small lining brush. So all I got are 1s here. That's not good. Why are my 0s? I'll have to get a 0. What are you? Are you a 0? Please be a 0. No. You're about the same. Sorry, folks. I probably should have done this beforehand. Alright, well. This is a fine detail brush, so we'll use this. This is a little smaller to get, whoops, this is a little smaller to get at some of the areas, so I'll use this. This is a Citadel. It doesn't have a number on it, but it's still a Sable. It's a fine detail brush. So we'll use that round 1, and it looks like it's a round 0. And then I want a small spotter or a small lining brush, which is right. I think I lost one. I think I lost it. Oh, no, it's right here. So I'll use this small lining brush. This is a 3-0. Whoops, this is a 3-0. And this is just more for lining things that I want to line, maybe get into those eyes for the pupils. So this is a very small brush. And remember, anytime we're using a small brush, we want to make sure that that paint is nice and thin so it goes all the way through the brush. So we're not going to use this very much till the very end, so you may not need that tonight. Okay. Welcome in, Demon Speed. How are you doing? Thank you so much for that subscription. I appreciate it so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not following Demon Speed 13, he's a miniature painter, game player. He's an overall entertainer. And if he's not gaming and he's not mini painting, then chances are he is playing a game that's about miniature painting. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is Demon Speed's address. Give him a quick follow. You'll never know when he's streaming unless you're following him. You'll get that notification, and it's always nice to have some lurkers in the channel if you're not being active. And with all that said, let's get some painting music on here. We don't want to blow out your ears, so I will bring this down just a bit. And we'll try that. And what looks good for a Sunday? You know what? A lot of conventions go on during the weekend. Sunday is the end of those conventions. People are checking out of hotels. People are traveling home. And people are getting back to their relative apartments or homes that may or may not have elevators in them. So let's play some elevator music. All right. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to take that nice large round brush that you have, and we're going to start filling in some of the colors. So we're going to take some of that brown, and we're going to take some of that ivory, and we're going to get 2 of the colors on there. Thank you for the shout out. I should be painting tonight, but I'm having struggle with making myself paint lately. It's the creativity is a struggle, and if you can't find the creativity to paint, then there's 2 things that you do. You don't paint. No, that's the third option. But you find something in a game, in a picture, in a movie that inspires you to paint. Or great time to just play around the sandbox and try something. If you don't want to paint, maybe you just want to try to blend, or maybe you want to try to dry brush, or maybe you want to construct a base. Don't let that creativity sit too long because it's hard to get back into the swing. But something, if you're constantly creative, and it's not just mini painting, but if you're constantly creative doing something, it may spawn something in your head to paint something a certain way. When I saw Napoleon on Prime, or I was watching what was the what was the movie we were watching? But something spawned like colors, and I'm like, oh my god, that'd be a great color scheme for a miniature. I never paint unless I'm live, but I have to make myself lately feel like I am not good enough to do it sometimes. Everybody's good enough. Everybody's good enough. It's just how much you want to put into it, that's all. You have to ask yourself, and I ask everybody this question, why are you painting? Are you painting to play a game? Are you painting for competition? You should never compare your work to other people. You should always compare it to what you've done. And I will tell you right now that my genie here was up against other genies. And this came in third place. I know why it came into third place, but I also know that there's things I can work on. So it's not the fact that I didn't do well, it's the fact that somebody else did more than I did. And I was trying to sell an effect of a spiritual glow, which I achieved, but other people had managed to make something more artistic and they beat me. It doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing. It just means that I didn't do enough. So it's not that nobody's good enough. Everybody's good enough in their own individual form. It's just a matter of, did you fail or did you succeed at the vision you were trying to convey? And I had a bunch of people come up to me and tell me that they could see the ethereal spirit of the genie, which is what I was trying to do. So I have achieved it. I succeeded. Even though I came in last place, I still succeeded in what I wanted to do. I've never played any games with any of my minis, and there isn't any comps near me. I know it is all in my head, but I can't always get it out of my own head. Yeah, if you don't have any support around you, it is much, much tougher. And during the pandemic, when I was all by myself, I struggled to do any painting because it's like, why am I painting? I'm not playing any games. I'm not doing any competitions. I mean, I got other stuff I could be doing at the house, and so I wouldn't paint. Then I found Twitch, and the community here is just, I just want to push myself as far as I can, but I still get to myself. Yeah, I get it. I really do. And I mean, I could say all the right words, but really at the end of the day, it's got, you have to come to terms and get that feeling back. Something has to excite you. And if something doesn't excite you, then why do it? So on my palette, I just put some ivory and I just put some brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually paint the bow stick brown, and then I'm going to paint the face ivory because I need an acrylic layer when I do my Gilliman flesh. And so we're going to do ivory because the skull is ivory. I'm just going to move this up a little bit because I have a feeling I'm going to, yeah, there we go. And so because the skull is ivory, I'm going to paint this entire face ivory. I'm going to paint the hands ivory, and we're going to get into some Gilliman flesh. And as that's drying, we'll get other places around here. So the first thing I'm going to do is the ivory. And as that dries, I'm going to do the bow stick. And as that dries, I'll get in with the Gilliman flesh. Now, the trick to painting faces is thin paint. So we need to make sure that that paint is thin. You can use water. You can use medium. You can do anything. That's why we have this large brush. Now I'm just going to put some water right there, and then I'm going to kind of flood it with this ivory. And usually it's about 2, maybe 3 ivories to the 1 water that you put in there, but you want it nice and thin. And I know it's thin because I can draw with it if I need to. It's not going to be a wash. I think this Monument Hobby is a little thin on the wet palette. Okay. And the first thing you're going to do, apply that light color. Now I know she's already white, but I still need the acrylic layer, so I'm just going to get in there with the ivory. And I'm just going to paint all of the face, all of the chin, all of her flesh with this ivory color. Thin paint so we don't lose any of that detail. That's the trick here. Don't lose any of that detail. So I'm sorry that you're not feeling the motivation. I totally understand that. Because I left the hobby for about 10 years. That's when the role-playing games came out. That's when like World of Warcraft and Star Wars came out. And then when I stopped playing those games, I didn't get back into mini painting. I didn't have any real reason to mini paint. And so it took me a long time. And then when I finally did get back into it, I had to restart everything. And so I said, you know what? Now's the time to try to work on something new. And so I worked on my blending, I worked on my glazing, I worked on mixing colors and stuff, because I started to learn and watching YouTube stuff that people paint with a controlled palette, which was what we do here. I got 9 colors and I'm just sticking with those 9 colors. So I learned how to mix colors to get what I wanted. Makes a more cohesive model, but there's got to be something that you're like, oh my God, that is so cool. I want to try to paint that. So you have to kind of research, you have to like look and see how to do it. Maybe it's just a matter of putting more techniques in your wheelhouse. But I've seen your stuff, Demon Speed. You're good enough. I'm telling you, you're good enough. So as we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to go right into the brown and we're going to paint that bow stick. Nice dark mahogany color. And this is all just basing, so sometimes you may need to get another coat on just so that it's nice and covered. And I'm trying to stay away too much from that ivory because that ivory looks a little wet over there. Now we're not going to finish this model today. We're going to spend the next 4 Sundays doing this miniature. So I promise not to do anything more on this miniature unless I tell you I'm going to do more, because there's a lot of stuff that gets tedious, and I may just spend time off stream doing all the tedious stuff so we can move on. It's sort of like a little homework assignment, but again, you don't need to stay and keep up with me. You always have a video to fall back on. So you can just watch, you can ask questions of why I do certain things. This is supposed to be more like a Bob Ross kind of thing where he's painting on canvas and you're either trying to follow him off of a tape or you're trying to keep up with him for real. But I think I go slow enough that you can kind of keep up most of the time. And again, this isn't really, I paint everything for tabletop. I don't paint anything for competition. If you want competition stuff, you have to spend a little more time refining some of the techniques you learn here. But it's not, I'm not going to leave you with a bad miniature. It's just that I don't do anything super advanced because I don't know who's watching the channel, and if people are trying to keep up, it's kind of hard to keep up when people are just constantly doing end product stuff and just doing their own thing and not explaining what's going on. All right. And I will always explain certain techniques that I use during the paint-alongs. So there it is. That's the mahogany. Whoops. Look at that. See? I missed a whole bottom section here. So this is the mahogany. This is the reddish brown. I like the reddish brown because it's a neutral color. Your eyes are gonna kind of go away from it, but it does add a little bit of that red color into this whole scheme of things. Okay, so that ivory doesn't look like it's very dry yet. And I can see it's not dry because it's coming off on my brush, and I can draw with it. Look at that, I can draw with that. So the ivory's not dry, so we just have to wait for that to dry. So I think what we'll do, you know what? Let's get into mixing a little bit of color. I'm gonna mix this ivory and this brown, and I'm gonna try to get below the pants here. There's all these like wraps around, so we're gonna do that in a nice light brown color. So I'm just gonna, so what I do when I mix is I take a shot of one color, rinse off the brush, dry it off there, and I will take one shot of the bright color. In this case it's the brown and ivory, and I'll mix those two together, and I get this nice middle mixture of this nice light brown color. I think I have a little too much ivory. There we go. That's more of a 50-50 mix. Mixing takes a while, so if you don't want to mix, you don't have to mix. Just estimate it. It's like a recipe. Everything gets estimated. They say a pinch of salt. Everybody's fingers are different, so everybody's pinch of salt is a different value. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to paint the bottom of her, and I'm only doing this because I want to get some of that ivory to dry out. So I'm just going to kind of do this. Well, it might look like a little flesh color, but anywhere right up there, all this little scrunchiness. And I didn't do a good job cleaning this miniature before I did it. And the reason is I was busy and I got lazy. But if you did cut the mold out lines off, then that's great. Yours is gonna look much better than mine. So I'm just getting that light color all under there. And because there's already mahogany on the miniature and there's ivory that will be on the miniature, this color is not gonna look out of place. There we go. Go right up there. And we'll do the same on the other side. And I don't need my magnifiers on because all we're doing is using very thin paint and just applying colors. This is what the gray, or this is what white primer does. You don't need to use a lot of paint with white primer. However, white primer is going to show every place you miss, which is good for competition pieces because then you know that you're getting everything covered. For beginners, if it's just a game piece, you might want to prime it black or gray because it is forgiving if you miss painting a spot. All right. So let's see, I think our hands. All right, so it looks like our hands are dry. And so here's how we're going to work this. So the reason why we did this nice bright acrylic layer is because when we go in with the Gilliman flesh, it's going to fill in all of the detail that's not covered up by paint. I shouldn't say that. If you have too thick a paint, you might cover up the eyes or you might cover up the mouth or something. So what I did is use thin ivory so it dries quicker. But most importantly, when I use the Gilliman flesh over this acrylic layer, it's really gonna fill in where I need it to fill in. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna get out that Gilliman flesh and I'm gonna use it right from the pot. Again, only a third, right? So you're only using a third of your brush. That's all gonna fill in the half the brush, so you just kind of put it in there. And when I do this, you're going to see the detail of the face and the skin. So I'm just going to kind of do this. Hopefully all the ivory is dry. We're going to hope and pray. And the thinner the paint, it'll just flow where it needs to go. We'll get up some in that hair. Okay. And we're gonna do the same thing on the hands. And look, it already looks like a flesh tone, doesn't it? So we're gonna have to let that dry a little bit. Might need a little more Gilman flesh in there. So I'll just grab some. Get some on her thumb here. And we'll get some on her hand here. All right. Just making sure that I have all of the dark spots covered. All right, so here we go. So we have to let that dry. But the trick here, the reason why we did the ivory is because we wanted the Gilman flesh to really be seen. So when this dries, anywhere you see a dark recess, we're going to keep. Anywhere you see a light color, we're going to paint over that with a flesh. So that's what we're going to do. So it looks like her eyes are closed. So we're going to keep them closed, I think. Are they closed? Let me just see. I'm going to add a little bit more darkness here and see if they're closed. They look closed to me, actually. All right. Well, maybe we'll do closed eyes on her. Who knows? But we have to let that Gilman flesh kind of go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give some, I'm going to give her dark mahogany pants. So that's what we're going to do down here. So we got to let that Gilman flesh dry. And we're only going to do the upper parts of these. So oh, there we go. And we might need to do a second coat if it's too blotchy or streaky. But everything gets an acrylic layer because this is just white primer. I didn't paint this white. And we're gonna kind of, I don't know if that's a separation with her pants. Let me see. Nope, it's not. So we're gonna keep her pants to her legs. Okay. Now some people are sitting there saying, wow, that's very drab. Well, it's gonna be drab until we get some color on her. And that's part of our contrast. That's our saturation contrast, right? Make everything nice and mute and neutral, and then we can pop it with some color. So we make everything nice and drab until we, boom, hit you with that color, and then that's what people get to see. Everybody's not even gonna look at these pants after we get color on them. She almost looks like a Jedi, right? From Star Wars. Could have made that a lightsaber. Alright, so these are robes. These are... Alright. I think I know what we can do. So now, let's do a little bit of wood stuff while we're waiting. People have always asked me how I do wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually mute this down. I'm going to use some yellow, some brown, and some gray. Now I just want a tint of yellow, so I'm just going to make a little well of yellow over here. It's going to be eventually used for the hair, but for right now, we're just going to stick that little well. And I'm going to actually use my smaller round brush. And I don't want a lot of yellow. So let me get... Okay, so I don't want a lot of yellow. I just want this much yellow, just to tint it. We're gonna get some brown in here. A little bit of ivory. Ivory will dictate. I think I need a little more yellow in here. There we go. So we have this nice yellowy kind of brown, and all I'm gonna do is kind of streak around. So I'm just going to take this, and now what's nice about wood is that it doesn't have to be straight. You can kind of zing this around a little bit here, kind of like this, and then we'll make a little dot in there, see? And then we come over here, and perhaps there's like this little line that comes here, break it. There's a little line here. So you can just do this. You can just kind of draw those patterns in. Now up here, it's got some ridges. So I'll try to stay as close to those ridges as possible. Since this color has some mahogany in it, if I mess up, you can just go back to the mahogany and paint over it. But this gives it a little bit more of a little texture, right? So you don't need straight lines for this. It's organic. Trees are organic. Living creature that we cut to make a bow stick. So we'll just kind of very lightly just draw some lines. If you're shaky, you're better at this than I, because I have to control how the lines go. But you know, if you have shaky hands, you know, and it'll look more natural. And I'm purposely missing the middle because there's some wraps there that she's holding on to. But you should just, it shouldn't really be noticeable stuff, because now what you can do is you can add more yellow to that, and we can get that to be brighter. We can add more yellow and ivory to that to get brighter. But I'm just doing stuff to make sure that my Gilliman flesh here is dry. Because if it's not dry, when you start to paint, it's going to catch all of that Gilliman flesh. So we want to wait for that to dry. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go right to the yellow, and I'm going to actually mix some brown into my yellow. So I'm going to make a whole new mix here, not my wood color. Remember, my wood color, I added ivory. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to take some dark brown, and I'm going to take some yellow, get a whole brand new color in here. Right? No ivory. And I'm going to start this, since now I have the yellow in here, right? Since the yellow is in here, I can highlight with yellow and it's not going to look bad. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this yellowy brown and do her hair. And I'm going to stay away from her face. So you already know where that Gilliman flesh line is, so don't go past it. Very controlled strokes, and try to stay away from the face. If you get some on her clothes, it's fine, because we're going to cover up the clothes. but we want to stay away from the face. And we'll just do this. So I think her hair goes all the way over here. And her hair comes down here. So just know where the hairline ends. I think there's a curl back here. She's got some long hair because I keep finding hair. And so it separates there. We want to make sure we paint in there. We're not going to paint that. We're not going to highlight in there, but we want to make sure that it's painted. Sometimes you don't have to thin the paints out. Yellow is a very thin paint, and it's naturally, so it naturally thins a lot of stuff. So I think I want to get some of this in here. Right there. And then we got the top of her head to do. There we go. Now she's got some hair that will eventually highlight to yellow. But we need to have that base color in there first. All right. So because the hair is a yellowy, gonna be yellow, that's a warm color, we call it. The red mahogany is gonna be a warm color. And the flesh tone is gonna be a warm color. So with all of this warmth, I think we're gonna kind of break that up with some blue. So I'm gonna actually use ivory and blue together to get this nice light blue sleeve. And I'll use the darker plain blue to get at the vest. So it'll be nice and blue. And that's the temperature contrast that we want to put on a miniature, is like if we have a lot of warm color. So now, not only do I have the saturation contrast, but now I'm going to add in the value contrast. Or, I'm sorry, the temperature contrast. So let's get some blue on our palette. Again, we don't need a lot of this stuff. We just need a well. We need a place to go to get more paint. So now I have the brown well, I have the ivory well, I have the yellow well, and I have the blue well. So if I need more paint from there, I can go grab it. So let's start with the light blue first, and then we'll work with the. So I'm going to take the large brush to mix with, but I'm not going to go all the way up the. See, you don't want to go all the way up the bristles. So I'm going to just take this. I'm going to put this over here. So I'm going to take and make a 50-50 mix, adding ivory. So I did what, 3 of those? So I gotta do 3 of the ivories. So I'm gonna do 1. I'm gonna put them right next to each other, and then I'm gonna slam them all together. Right there. And I'm gonna just slam it all together and see what happens. So I get a nice brighter blue, but it's not as bright as I want it to be. So I'm gonna do a little bit darker. This is a nice base color. I could just do this color here and a little bit of water here just to mix that up, but I think I want to go a little bit brighter than that. So let's get some ivory. Trying to get enough ivory and get more ivory in there. So you're going to kind of make a sky blue kind of. We'll start with this. This will be a nice shading color for that bright blue. So we'll do this. So that bright blue we're going to do on the sleeves and in the middle of this band. So we'll do this. Nice and light, very controlled. Don't hit your brown, don't hit your flesh. In fact, you can start near the flesh and then work your way into the middle. All right, start slow by the flesh. You have the Gilliman flesh to make that dark line, so don't go past the dark line. And right up there. Do the same thing here. Nice and slow. Near the edge. You don't want to get any on that flesh. We haven't really started a flesh, so if you did, do not worry about it. There we go. And then there's this little bit down here. And we'll do all this. Okay, so there we go. Now look at that. That blue is popping. Why is it popping? Because everything else is just drab color. It's got more pigment. It's got more vibrancy to it. And so again, because we're near other colors, we have to take our time. All right, you don't want to go fast. And you just want to try to get as close as you possibly can to the bow stick and the flesh color without going over. All right, that's the old Price is Right. Don't go over. So we're just trying to get near that hand and then pull it away from the hand, because if you pull it away from the hand, you can't go over it. Start near the hair, then pull away from the hair. Very slow. If you have to dab next to the bow stick, you dab next to the bow stick. And then you just fill everything in. There we go. That's going to be nice and bright when we get done with it. But for right now, that's the color we've got. So I'm going to just dry this up a little bit. And we're going to do the inside here. Again, thin paint. Don't lose any detail of the miniature, or else you're not going to be able to see all the nice nuances. Now she has a blue top. This is going to be a little tough. You gotta see if you can see it. And just stay on that shirt as much as possible. Remember that she's going to have dark blue coming down, so we don't want to do too much of that. There is part of this shirt or skirt, so we'll just do that part there. And then inside here, so there's some right here. Again, be careful you don't get on the pants. Although we didn't do anything with the pants, so oops, I made a mistake, but that's all right. I'll just paint over that again. So mistakes are fine. You just have to make sure you go clean them up. In fact, if I go clean it up now, it gives me more time for that. It gives me more time for that Gilliman flesh to really get dry, which I think it's already dry now, but let's just go fix the shirt. So I'm going to come back over here. Wherever I made that mistake, you just paint over it. I think I missed a spot down here. And then I will fix this as well. Okay. There she So there she is so far. All she has is base colors on her, so she's gonna look really, really flat. I haven't done the dark blue yet. We're not gonna worry too much about the dark blue yet. What I want to do is the flesh. So we're going to take some flesh. Now, whatever color flesh you have, that's the one we're going to keep on using. We're not going to go find lighter flesh. We're not going to go find darker flesh. We're just going to keep the flesh that we have. Okay. And we're going to thin that down just a little bit. So I'm going to get out a little dropper bottle of water that I've made just for these occasions, since I now have dirty water. And you're going to take some of this paint here and some of this water and mix it together until we have thin paint. We don't want it to be super thin. We don't want it to be a glaze. Because I think I put too much water in here. And it's on a wet palette, so. All right. So how do you know if you have a good enough paint to paint, a good enough thin paint to paint with? Well, the thing you can do is to try to draw a bee with the paint. And see, that bee, you can't see it. So it's not really a good painting. It's a good, glaze paint maybe, but not a good thin paint. So I'm just going to keep adding some paint in this to kind of thicken it up. So people that do craft paints will always try to make their paints super thin with the craft paints, and then you just want to be able to draw with it. So I'm going to just draw this bee. Look at that. Can you see that bee? If you can see that bee, then we've got a good paint to paint with. All right? Okay. The trick to flesh, nice thin paint. And now I'm just going to paint the flat surfaces of her. I'm not going to paint anywhere the Gilman flesh, right? I'm not painting the whole thing. I'm just painting where I see flat edges. And I'm trying to stay, well, in this one, I'm not worried too much about where to highlight. All I care about is making sure that the flat edges are a flesh color. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to come around the face here. Looks like this cheek is a flat edge. So I'm just staying away, like from under the eyes. Under the eyes. Oops. Let's get some off of that. I use my thumb to get rid of the moisture. And then I'm just going to go in and touch the paint. I'm not doing it here. So I'm going to have to go get another brush here. Let me get a nice dry brush here and just poke at that. And I got to fix that hair. So let me fix, whoops, that's the wrong color for the hair. All right, there we go. See, so I don't know if you can see what happened, but see I covered up that Gilman flesh right there. That's not a good thing, so we have to wait now. So let's get some more of this thin. Let's do the fingers. I'm gonna wait for the face because that face is a little wet from me washing things, but here, the top of the hand can get all of that flesh tone. And then we'll do the fingers because the fingers have some brightness to it. But we don't want to get in between the fingers because it has the Gilliman flesh. So you just have to be very, very controlled. And had I cleaned this miniature a bit, I probably wouldn't have those mold lines to contend with. But all that Gilliman flesh did was tell me where not to paint. Now I know exactly where to paint. So I know where on this thumb to paint. I know where the individual fingers are. And remember, she started out ivory. She didn't start out fleshy. She started out ivory, and we used the Gilliman flesh to get that color in there. Now we can start adding lighter colors to this Dwarven flesh to really sell some nice blending going on. And you can do this with any flesh tone you want. Just gonna do this right here. This looks like it belongs. This looks like it belongs. And this looks like it belongs. Our neck, right? Now I'm going to leave under her chin nice and dark so that shows a little bit of definition. And I'm just trying to make sure that everything is nice and clean. So now we have, oh, we forgot our nose. How did we forget our nose? Let's get our nose. Okay. I think her eyes are closed. Hello, having trouble getting stream together. Trouble getting stream together. What do you mean? Just started working. Well, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna shout out a Night Whisper. I was with a Night Whisper all weekend. This weekend at TotalCon. Why didn't that work? Is my cloud got off? Oh, I'm just lagging. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not following Night Whisper, please go follow him. He is one of the most creative, artistic guys I know, and he came in second place in our Genie Challenge. Also won Best in Show at TotalCon, so congratulations to Night Whisper for your squad of orcs. So follow him. If you really want to see some colors pop and you really want to see some artistic miniatures, a Night Whisper is the guy to follow. His was more artistic than mine. I was going for an effect. He went more for a movie poster type deal. So congratulations to him on his second place Genie win. And if you follow his stream and you follow his Instagram, you'll get to see his Genie. A Night Whisper, do you know if those R3 genies were photographed together? I mean, I don't mean individually, I mean together. Okay, so what we're going to do now is taking that nice thin flesh tone that we have. I'm going to take this flesh tone right in here. I'll thicken it up just a little bit here. And what you want to do is you want to add ivory. Now, when we add ivory, we're adding ivory in little doses because it will change the tint. So you don't want to go too much. So you just want to do this until it brightens up, right? So we're just going to do that. It's not going to take a lot to brighten up. The question was if somebody took all three, a picture of all three genies next to each other, because I kind of wanted that to show everybody the different styles of the same miniature. And so now what you're going to do is you're going to go in and you're going to highlight a skull on her face. So think of a skull, right? A skull has the forehead, right? It has above the eyes. It has below the eyes. It has the upper lip. It has the chin. It has some jawline, right? So if you look at this, I can actually draw a skull with, right? And then there's this nose that's in the middle here. So that's kind of where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to highlight the skull. So we start with that forehead, highlight the forehead. Very softly. See it? Then we're going to highlight those cheeks. And we're going to highlight those other cheeks. Right? I'm going to highlight the chin of the skull. Going to highlight that nose. Highlight just above the eyes. So where that brow is. And that upper lip. So it's all very small highlights, but that's what we want right there. So we're just going to keep highlighting those. Notice that I still have the dark areas here. If you want eyes closed, you have to kind of highlight the eyes. Maybe she's listening. Right? So that can be one way of getting rid of eyes. You just paint them closed. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the chest area. Very small highlights. On the neck area down here. Right? Every time you add a highlight color, every time you add ivory, every time you add white or a lighter color, the area that you highlight needs to get smaller. So instead of painting the whole hand, I'll just do like from this part of the finger down, leaving the back of it a little darker. Maybe I'm not painting the whole finger, but that curve of the finger. These curves of the finger. Maybe I'm painting the knuckles. Right? And the same thing over here. Here's my finger. Here's my thumb. Here's my other finger. Or knuckle. I think this is the knuckle part. This is the first highlight. Don't paint over the Gilliman flesh. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little more ivory to that color right there. I'm going to really make it bright. Not too bright, but you still want it to be a light flesh. Notice that I've only used the one flesh and the ivory. I haven't gone and looked for a lighter flesh. You don't need to. And because I've added ivory, guess what I have to do? Paint smaller areas. So we'll just paint this smaller area right here, right at the front of the forehead. Everything is still thin. There's nothing that I've done. I haven't thickened anything up. This is all still thin paint, right? The cheeks, right under the eye, I'm going to do. I'm going to do the tip of the nose. I'm going to do that upper lip. I'm going to do that chin. And if you can do it, you just do like a couple little dots on the eyelids, right at the bottom to show that her eyes are closed. And we're going to do the same thing other places. Now remember, these are all base colors. We can always go back and clean things up afterward. So I'm just applying a little bit of highlights down there. Now I'll just do it on the fingertips here at the bottoms of the hand. Not all the way up. And I'll do it on the knuckles itself. All right, because the knuckles have a little bit of bone, and so they're going to look a little bit more in the highlight. Now, if you were doing dynamic lighting, you may not do all of this highlighting. There we go. And that's where she's looking. And then if I want, I can try to go a little bit brighter. But this is a good start. Now, the thing I want to do is if I want to fix something, I will have to go to that Gilliman Flesh and kind of fix it. But you have to be very, very careful. So if you want to fix it, you have to wipe most of it off so that you only have a point. And then you have to paint with it. You can't wash with it. So I can see that I painted over this Gilliman Flesh here. So I'm going to just kind of give that a little bit more of a darker tone. Right there. And I painted over this Gilliman Flesh. So we'll give that a darker tone. But this is where my mistake happened. So I want to make sure I fix that mistake right there. And I'm just using the tip of the brush. I'm not using the whole brush. See? That's what we want. And I'm going to also do it inside the lip. Now you could do this with a very controlled brown. But I'm going to use the Gilliman Flesh because I just have to touch the mouth and it will do what I need it to do. So I'm just going to touch it and it's going to flow into that recess and right under the nose. There we go. Okay. Now that we've got some of that flesh done, I'm not going to touch any more of the flesh right now. But I could go in with a brighter color. Well, we'll do it. I'm going to go in with a brighter color here. It's going to be super bright. And what I want to do is make dots. That's what we're going to do. So you're going to thin out your paint. Make sure you have a point. And you're going to make dots. So like dot right in the forehead. Right? Dot at the tip of the nose. Dot right in the cheek. Dot the chin. And right on top of the lip. So I might have too much brightness over here, but I have to wait for it all to dry because you're seeing the wet part of it. But I'm just going to kind of give this a little bit more of a highlight and let it dry. And I'm not going to do anything on the hands because the hands aren't really where I want to go. So So there we go. Now, the reason why the face isn't really popping is because all this is brown. So we're going to fix the hair up soon. But the one thing I want to do is to go back to the wood color. So what I'm going to do with the wood color is I'm going to add more yellow to my wood color mixture. So remember, we had the ivory, we had the mahogany, and we had the yellow, right? That's our color we had. And so I want to add more yellow to that. Too much yellow. Okay. And so now I should be able to follow along the lines you created, but not all of the line. You don't want to lose all of that line. So I'm just going to go in the middle of the line that I created. And remember, it doesn't have to be, you don't need to have a steady hand for this. It can just, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to try to stay close to the line that I created. So there's a line here that I created, a line here. Created a line over here. And there's this line right here. So yours might look different because you created different lines than I did. There we go. And so there is part of the staff. We're going to take that brown yellow again. This time I'm not going to go deep into the recess. I just want to go where I can see to make this lighter. So it doesn't have to be a lot. Right back here, if there was any blue that you got on here, you can just kind of cover that up with that color. There we go. So all I'm doing is adding a little bit of wood texture to this because it's just like a flat rod. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take that regular blue and finish off her vest. Now that we got her flesh done, we're going to actually use this blue here to finish off the vest. And it's going to look kind of similar in color tone, but remember, we're going to lighten up that inside. So we're going to just kind of be very careful on how we want to paint this blue on here. Okay, so see, there's that dark blue, and I'm just going to go around the miniature and do this blue again, not using that much paint. Only a third of the brush gets the paint. Get right on that, right around the hair. Anytime that you're next to another piece that you've painted, just be very, very slow and careful. I will try to be as slow as I can so people can keep up. So there's some, so I'm gonna have to get in there with that lighter blue. So there's a piece that I missed, but there's some hair here. So I'm gonna just kind of be very careful. Nice and slow around the hair. Certainly don't want to get blue on the hair, but if you do, it's okay because maybe her hair doesn't cover that part of, we're gonna have to paint over the blue with her hair, but it kind of makes it look like it's in the background. So you really can't make a mistake here. You just have to know how to rectify those mistakes. And that's the part of miniature painting. Try not to make mistakes, but if you do, we can get around it. So there's some pieces of the hair that I think I didn't get here, so I will make sure I do. But that will be off stream. I will spend time cleaning up the miniature. I will show you how to clean the miniature up if you made any mistakes along the way. Again, these are all base colors, except for the flesh. We did some highlighting in the flesh. But we haven't really highlighted anything else. We made some wood grains, but we can always paint over that if we messed up. Okay. There she's looking monkeyish. Monkeyish? No, that's not the right word. She's looking like a monk. Just looking to make sure that I'm not missing any of the dark blue. And she's got a little bit of a vest up here that we have to get at. Once the weather starts warming up, I won't have this heater making my paint dry, because I'm having a hard time getting it from the wet palette to the miniature. So I have to use a little bit more fluid to get that to work. If you get any on that tie or that belt, don't worry about it, because we're going to paint over that with a color when we find out what color we're going to paint over. Let's do this. Let's bring this dark blue all the way back here around that hair. Bring this dark blue all the way around, not all the way in that middle. Okay. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there should be blue right here and around this hair. Yep. Okay. So we have that, and now I'm going to take that lighter blue that we used, which is right here. I'll get a little bit more water to that. Oh, that's too much water. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just see where all that white is in there. I'm going to just kind of get that to be this color. I don't have to come back to that color because that's going to be in shadow. So I'm just dabbing the white. I might be getting some on the dark blue, but darker blue is easier to cover than lighter blue. So just get that nice and even. All right. And then I think I got some dark blue on. Maybe I didn't. Okay. All right. Next thing I'm going to show you is to get the bands around the bow stick. So all I'm going to do is take some of this yellow and some of the ivory. We're going to mute that ivory right out. Or excuse me, mute that yellow right out with this ivory. Wow, I think I used a lot of yellow. Okay. So it's going to be a very, very bright yellow. I could put brown in it, but I'm not going to do that. I could put some gray in it, though. Let's put a little bit of gray in there and see what happens. Let's get some gray on the palette, since that is a color we're using. It's a nice bright gray. I'm going to grab some of this gray right here, throw it in this mixture. Anytime you add gray to a color, it's going to mute it down. It shows everywhere where you missed, so I'll get that to be nice and fleshed out. And then there's a little piece of the shirt that I missed, so we'll get that to be colored in. Looking around, see if there's any more white that I missed. I mean, I know that the base is white and I know that our tie is white, so we're gonna wait on that. Okay, the last thing we're gonna do is the hair, and then we're gonna call it done for tonight, but we're gonna come back to this next Sunday. So we're gonna do the hair, and in order to do the hair, we're going to take that original color that we did, which is this mahogany and this yellow. We did that. We took some of this color. We added in a bunch of yellow. Right, that's the color we wanted. And so what I'm going to do is actually add more yellow. So we're going to take this yellow. I'm going to take 2 shots of this yellow. And I'm going to add in some of this color here to make this nice little, much more golden brown piece. Now, with hair, we always look for the curves. So in this case, I'm not too worried about the curves yet. I'm not too worried about these individual strands. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint as if it was a flat surface. Right? So I kind of want to put the highlight here. I don't want to go inside her neck. I'm going to keep that kind of dark, but I'm going to do kind of right here. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm also going to do right outside here. Notice that this is not pure yellow. This is still got that mahogany in it. Right? I don't want to go all the way down because I want some of that dark to go down there. Now we're going to do like the top. So I'm following, when I'm painting, I'm following the hair, the way the hair goes. So since the hair comes this way, I'm going this way. Right? Going this way. This one. When I come this way, the hair goes down this way. So I have to move the miniature to come down. Now, when you do hair, you kind of make this halo. So you're kind of doing this. I'm turning the miniature and making this halo so that the middle part is going to be this, still this dark, but I'm making this halo coming around. And then I'm also going to do more of this. So I can see that this is in the light. So I'm going to do this because that's curved out. This is curved out. I'm going to come down the back here. I'm leaving some of that darkness in to give it some volume. Right? That's what we want to do. So I'm not worried about the strands. All I'm worried about is where my light is going to hit most of the hair. And again, it's going to look very muted down because we still got the brown in there. And I'm not inside. Notice I didn't go inside the hair or the neck. I'm going to keep that nice and dark so it frames in that face. I could come in here just a tad bit, but what I really want to do is just frame in that face. So there's some hair right here that I missed. There we go. There, see? And now we're going to let that dry, so we're going to rinse out the brush, and we're going to add, you guessed it, more yellow to that mix. And we're going to, since we're adding a lighter color, we're going to do a little smaller area. So I may not go all the way down. I might just do up in here, right? So anything that's kind of facing upward. So I'm going to take another shot of yellow, mix it in there. No change, mix some yellow. Until you see a visible change. This is going to be a visible change. Right? So now, again, I'm just going to take and do the same thing I did before, but this time I'm not going to go too far into right? So I don't know if you could see it, but I'm not doing all of it. So like I want to do the top. I know that, right? You do the top. Maybe I get somewhere over here in the middle. Not all over, just in the middle. Leave a space, do the edge here, right? I don't even think, oh yeah, that's hair, right? And then when I do the halo, I want to do it very short. So see, I'm just doing a very short highlight, but I'm still doing the halo, and I'm not looking at strands. The strands will be the last thing I worry about, if I want to worry about it. Then I can see I have a little bit of highlight here in this little corner, a little bit of highlight here, and all we're doing is adding volume to this hair. We're not really worried too much about individual strands. I can't say it enough. Not yet, anyway. Just making sure I have the halo effect. So when you're doing hair, it's got to have that halo going around this way. All right, so that's a good color. I'm going to go right to yellow now. This is a much lighter color. This is going to be very, very small, but this is what's going to give it that yellow look to it, that yellow pop. So very small yellow. This one I can kind of pick out some strands, but not too many, because you still want to have that volume. But it's very, very, very light, very small. So maybe I just do somewhere down here. And it doesn't have to be uniform. Don't make it stripy. Be all random with it. Have to do the top. So I'm only going to do where that curve is. Maybe down his face a little bit, just to frame the face. And then we're going to do that halo effect, but this time I'm only going to do it around the top where where it curves from the top of the head to the bottom. And again, I'm doing like these little slashes just to give it some texture. I'm not really following any hair. Down here, in the middle here, give this some volume. Down here, give this some volume. Same thing over here. Yeah, it looks like it could do it. Okay. So there we go. That's what that looks like. Maybe right on our shoulder. Just a little bit. So there we go. She's got some yellow hair. Now, this is great for tabletop, right? People are going to know she has blonde hair. But we're going to take it a step farther next week. We got to let things dry. We'll take it a step farther next week. I think I want a little bit of yellow hair right here. Maybe a little bit coming down. Not too much, because it's pointing away from the light. All right. Okay, so things to work on for next week. Well, there's not too much that we have to work on for next week. I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning things up a little bit. I might do that off stream, or I have 10 minutes left here, so I'm just going to go and even off these pants a little bit. They look a little streaky, so maybe I can give them a second coat. Yours may not look streaky. Yours may look like like you got it correct, but you want to fix, like I had some blue on there, so I wanted to fix that off. A lot of my white, like I missed a couple spots here. So I'm just kind of making sure that I get a nice even coverage, because when we go to highlight the pants and we go to put the wrappings around the shoes, you know, we want to make sure we have a nice base for all that stuff. So hopefully her face is looking pretty good. Now, one thing I can do is I can go back with that Gilliman Flesh and I can wash this down like we did before to kind of blend all of those highlights together. But I feel like I haven't gone up too far with the highlights yet, so let's not do that. But you can start to see some definition in her face, in her hands. So, you know what? Within the 10 minutes, let's go one step farther. So we did a 50-50 mix of this blue, right? We did this, and then I added in this color twice. That's my 50-50 mix, right? So now that I have that color, I'll add a little bit of water just to make sure it's all mixed together. Wash out that brush, dry it off. Okay, so I can see that I missed a couple spots here on the blue, but I don't have to worry too much about that. I do, however, want to even this off, so I will even this off. So there's some dark blue spots that I missed, but I'll get to those off stream. I'm just looking to see. I think there's a little bit of blue right here that needs to come up under her hair. So I'm just fixing my stuff right now. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna add more ivory to that shirt color. Show you where we're gonna go for next week. So what I'm gonna do is to take more of this ivory and mix it into this color we made. And I'm gonna do that twice. So now it's 2 ivories to every blue, if you're keeping score. I'm gonna do another shot of ivory, so now that's 3 ivories to every blue, 2 blues. And I'm gonna take this paint and I'm gonna thin it out. So I got some water right here. I'm gonna thin that out. Come back to a point with my round. And this time you're gonna just kind of paint over those folds and on the top. So just be very careful. Paint over those. Because you want to keep some of the blue, right? You want to keep some of that original blue in the shadows. So anywhere you think that there's a highlight. And we want the whole shirt done this way. So I'm just going to kind of go over the shoulder. And these folds right here show where that dark is going to be. And then we're going to do the whole top of the arm. That's all going to get this nice. Anywhere there's a flat surface, we're going to highlight, kind of like on the flesh. Right? And look at how it all of a sudden pulls away from that dark blue. That's kind of what we want. That's where the contrast is happening. So here, there's a fold right about here. And there's a fold that comes right about here. They're not big folds, so you don't have to worry too much about them. There is a fold that comes up this way. And so now I'm just going to do the tops of everything here. I mean, we're going to go back and highlight again anyway. But If it's flat, we'll highlight it. And we're going to keep that bottom a little darker than the top. We're going to do the same thing on this side. So this side has a little wrinkle right there. So I'll make a little skip. It's got a little wrinkle there. I'll make a skip. And I will come out this way. Again, I got to be very careful because I got a bow stick in my way. And we'll even it off near the bow stick. Make sure your paint is nice and thin. It makes life a lot easier for us if we make a mistake. Now on here, it looks like I have an edge right here and a little wrinkle, so I'll do a little, well, I guess I'm not skipping on top. But there is a little bit of a, there we go. There is a little wrinkle there. There is a little wrinkle up there. Right? Now we have a wrinkle here. We have our elbow. And I'm pulling up away from the bow stick to make sure that we don't get anything on the bow stick. And when you do the skirt, I'm just going to stay towards the middle of the skirt. I'm not going to worry too much about going to the edge. Same thing over here. Gonna make a little triangle. I'm losing my point here. It's not good. That means that my heater is drying out my brush. I want the gray in there. So don't do me. Don't do what I do. I try to paint without a tip to make things work. Always make sure you're using a tip. It makes life a lot easier. There we go. Oh, what happened? I got it on the pants, right? All right. Well, we haven't done anything with the pants, so we're good. So we can always repaint over that. Oh, got it on the pants again. Oh no, what are you doing? Well, you know what we're doing? We're gonna be fixing those. No, I did it on purpose so that you could see if you make a mistake, you can go back and fix it. Now over here, there is this little edge. And then you can start to see some of these folds. So I'm gonna paint on top of the folds. And then any flat surface. So there's a flat surface here. There's some flat surfaces right here. Don't worry if you make this all light blue. And then there's also this piece right here. Now this actually comes to an edge, so this one's not going to go all the way to that white one, so don't make this one level, right? There's a separation in there. And then we'll just do this. There we go. There we go. And that has now become even brighter. See how it's pulling away from that dark blue? It's not so close together now. And what we're going to do again is we're going to add more ivory next week, and we're going to redo all of that stuff we did, keeping some of this brighter blue down here, but just getting it into the where it's kind of like popping out. And then we'll figure out what color we're going to do this. This might be a yellow color to bring in the hair. Or we'll do a different color here. I'm not sure what we're going to do. We're going to edge highlight, and we're going to do some shading down here. And then I will gloss, or not gloss, I will glaze. Once we get this wood color down, I will glaze this down with a yellow and a brown, and you're going to see what happens at that stage. So, not a bad start to this. Hopefully you had fun. So, yeah. So the last thing I'm going to do before we leave is I'm just going to paint the base gray, because that white base now is going to take away everything we did up here, because everything up here has color outside of the tassel or the ribbon, but everything up here has color, making this the brightest part. So I don't want that to be the brightest part, so I'm just going to go in with some of the gray, which I have, and I'm going to come in with some of this black. I don't need a lot of black, because black is a very powerful color, and black is going to change the thing. So here's my bright gray, right? I'm going to put it over here. Now watch what happens. I'm just going to take, look at how much black I have on there. Not a lot, right? Watch what happens to this gray. Look how dark that gray. Very powerful color. This is what we're going to do. So we're going to take some of this gray. We're going to take some of this black. Look at that. Not a lot of black in there. And it totally changes the tint. And I'm just going to go in here and just paint this. Gray is a very muted color. It's a neutral color. So it's going to, the eyes aren't even going to focus on this. So the eyes are now going to focus on that bright blue, because that's the most vibrant part of this until we get that yellow in the hair. So even though that the yellow is pretty vibrant because of that brown that's in there, it kind of mutes it down. Brown is a neutral color. Notice that I am just painting with very thin gray paint, because as soon as this dries, it will become so much darker. You'll see it next week. Right now you're just looking at wet paint, and it's just reflecting the light. But look at how that, hopefully it's pulling away from your eye. Hopefully that base is no longer catching your eye, and you're now back to looking at her. All right, there it is. That is, there she is so far. We'll clean her up a little bit, but she'll be another game piece for you to put on the table if you have a female monk NPC or a female monk player character. So I'm going to turn off this music now. I don't know why I just did that. I'm not taking, and I'm coming back out here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for stopping in tonight. Thank you so much for that subscription, Demon Speed 13. I hope you find some inspiration soon. Night Whisper, thank you for lurking around. We're going to go and raid into Night Whisper. I believe he's having a dual stream with T-Cat, another wonderful streamer. Let me give a shout out to T-Cat really quick. If you're not following her, please give her a follow. When she is a role player, she's also a mini painter. She does a lot of whoops, T-Cat. Let's see if this, no, that's not what I want. I want this, right? I think that's what I want. Hopefully that works. Does that work? I hope it works. We're gonna go find out. Yes, that worked. All right, cool. Ladies and gentlemen, follow those folks. We're gonna go right into Night Whisper, because he's an awesome painter. If you're looking for artistry, if you're looking for inspiration, he may have it for you. He is an artistic soul, and he's become much more into the he's delved loads into the miniature painting world. When I met him, he was doing everything. He's colorblind, folks, and when he was doing stuff, a lot of his stuff was very muted down, and he has brought his color popping skills up from the 2 years that I've known him. So please give him a follow. Enjoy him. We'll be back on Tuesday at 7 o'clock doing more of the technical glazes with contrast paint from GW. And one of the things that we're going to try to work on is that molten metal weapon, meaning it's very bright in the center and it works its way, cooling itself off to a point where it becomes almost a non-glowy steel. So I'm going to look at some YouTube videos again and see how we can do it. We're going to try to work out the contrast paint because that's a paint that I haven't really used, and I want to try to get more into the contrast. And quite frankly, I use that for some of my non-metallic metal gold. So hopefully it helps out. We did a little bit last week with it. And then we also did some Harpy stuff, but that's where we're going to go on Tuesday. And then we'll be back next Friday at 9 p.m. And it's Freedom Friday, meaning that I get to take anything I want off my to-do shelf or finish shelf. Finish Fridays, Film Brigade Fridays, however you want to call it. And we're going to finish working on some stuff. I think they might be monsters. I don't know. Maybe it's a Friday monster thing. So join us on Tuesday at 7 p.m. and on Friday, and we will be back again next Sunday working more on her. Thank you so much, guys. We're going to go right into a Night Whisperer, so hang out until we do the raid and then follow him or give him 5 minutes and then secretly move out. Have fun, guys. We'll see you Tuesday. Just got to find him now. A Night Whisper. There he is. All right. Have a great week, folks. Don't work too hard. Save some hobby time. And remember, try everything. Have a good night.